then 2 in the row from the next one, you want to mix them up.
Also, if we're trying to provide a good user experience and not just meet the requirements, then if you close it one day and then open it the next day and there's a new one, you might need to reorder them, so you can't
That's right.
and cache a static list.
Yeah, that's one of the complications of this list is changing because the rules that you've got here are also changing. And so that
changes both because of the publishing of the new episode, but also changes based on what you've played.
Yeah, the combination. Yeah. So that neither one of those two things on its own is sufficient. You would have to have both the list of episodes you have played and have new things come out. And so it could completely change the order based off of your rules that you have here and now the updated information about which episodes you have listened to while you are making progress through yesterday's playlist. Now it's a new day, and based off the information you had, rather than just checking them off one at a time, that changes all kinds of things about the calculation that it's going to perform, in addition to the fact that now you have new episodes.
So, follow-on question,
Yeah.
why are you making a playlist when what you probably want to do is just based on what you've played and what is available to be played, what do you play next? Given that how many of these things are however long, this calculation is going to be quick enough that realistically, if you, even for NPR News Now, for however many minutes,
Yeah.
you might as well just do the calculation of like, what do I play next, rather than trying to materialize the entire list.
Well,
That's true, but then you lose like this rule.
And what if somebody's on a long ride and they see that, oh, it's going to be these two that play, but then the app does an update,
Yeah.
and actually the second one ends up getting swapped out for something else, and then they're like, well, crap, that's not what I wanted to listen to while I was driving down 35.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. Or if you're someplace where you know on an airplane or something like that, you got disconnected, whatever, any number, you're going to Auditorium Shores on July 4th, and it turns out they don't have cell phone signal. Like there's no cell phone signal at Auditorium Shores anymore.
My point is more if the app does, if the user is in an active listening session,
Yes.
and the app does an update in the middle of that causes a reordering of the queue, that feels like the kind of thing that you're going to get a user complaining about.
Yeah, potentially, but that would be up to you. But in a sense, the trick here is you would be able to handle rules like that. You could have that be another rule that that things that are only this many steps ahead in the playlist can't be changed or whatever. But in any case, even a rule like this, having the back-to-back rule, requires an amount of information about order, which we did not say that we had about what has been played in the past.
Yeah, the order bit here, my assumption on like all you have to care about is what's next is you have to have previous history.
Yeah, in the order of your previous history.
Yes.
Yeah, and so that may be a reasonable assumption that you have what have you listened to in the past in order. And if you do have that, yes, you would be able to get this particular.
Yeah.
But if you did not have that, which I think a lot of podcast apps and such don't do that by default. They just have we listened, yes or no.
Yeah.
They don't have a what?
They don't keep an ordered list of what you have listened to in the past. So in order to be able to satisfy this rule,
You would need
going
to be
forward, you would need to have had an ordered list in the past. So you either need an ordered list in the future or an ordered list in the past. If you don't have an ordered list somewhere in here, you can't have this rule.
And if you, like, one way of materializing the ordered list in the past is polling the podcast client of like, hey, what's listened to now, and actually tracking that.
Yeah, and that works as well.
Yeah.
Certainly, I'm a fan of Last.fm. I looked it up the other day. I've had an account on Last.fm since like 2008, I think. And I thought I had had it for longer than that. And it was I was a Linux user back in the day. I saw, hey, these guys support this Linux stuff. Cool. Let me get an account. what is it? I don't know. And so like when Twitter came out a few years later, in my head it was like, oh, it's like Twitter but for text. Like that is how Last.fm's been around for a long time. So yeah, and they will keep track of your historic information about when you listen to what in what order. But I'm not going to actively fetch from Last.fm necessarily if I'm generating a list like this. So
Do we have a rule about if you're in the middle of an episode and you pause?
oh, that's fair. Yeah.
Do you want it, like imagine you earlier you said long trip, and the first thing I imagined was driving to Kansas, and then you said I-35. I said, oh yeah, that's one reason. If you're listening in I-35, and it turns out it doesn't take an hour, it only takes 45 minutes, and you don't finish the episode, you pause, go the next day, you get back on I-35 and you push play. Does it resume or does it pick the news now? Because the technical.
That is a good question. That's a great example. It's like, and so that's the thing is it might depend on which of these we're talking about. So maybe if you were halfway through, I think if you're halfway through one of the news ones, depending on the particular one and how long they lasted, maybe you want to see that one through.
How long it's been since you played it?
Yes.
And, you know, what if,
Certainly a news one. Yeah.
well, what if you're in the middle of a serial and you're like, I'm bored, I want something else, and then you go play the Daily Tech News,
Yeah.
and then you want to come back later to the serial?
Yeah, that would make sense. On the flip side, if you were like listening to a season of Serial, you get like, you know, most of the way through the season. Oh, I've got this other stuff happening. I've got other podcasts I have to go listen to real quick. Hold on, and then you come back to it, you know, months later. Like those stories really build on each other. So you probably don't want to, like, you would rather start over from the beginning of that season, maybe. So that's the problem. You got, exactly. So it turns out this is a very deep rabbit hole. And yeah, like, yeah.
Slightly simpler on the topic of ordering. In my podcast players, I've only ever used the default date-based ordering.
Yes.
Are we going to write fake times to this list to reorder them for people like me?
The RSS has date timestamps, right? So you can do reverse chronological order for Serial. Or no, sorry. You can do reverse chronological order for Daily Tech News headlines. Right?
Yeah, well, and again, what order is the RSS feed itself? Is it the newest ones at the top? Is it the oldest ones at the top?
My point is the order that it's written in the feed is probably irrelevant to most players, at least in their default state.
It depends. Yeah, so I don't know, these days it may not. In the past, like when I was first listening to techie podcasts years ago, some of the podcast players would just play them whatever the hell order they happened to show up in the RSS feed. And some of them would be really picky and try to sort the ones. And some of them would look at which of these different RSS feeds had the oldest episode, which you have not listened to, and then play whatever the first one in order in that thing was that you haven't listened to. And so you get this really bizarre combination where it suddenly they updated their feed with old episodes, you know, for some reason. Like, oh, we used to only have the most recent 10 episodes. Now we're going to have the most recent 100 episodes. And we have them in, like, newest first, oldest last. And then suddenly, because of that, over and over and over again, it would play the newest episodes going back on that one because it saw there was an old episode, but that wasn't the episode. Yeah.
So it seems like you definitely need to
Something.
record, have an ordered log of what has been listened to.
Yeah.
And then if the feed updates with something further back than the first one you listened to, you probably ignore it for something, things like Serial.
I agree, but I don't think, at least the podcast client I use doesn't do that. It just, oh, look, there's more episodes.
Well, we're coming up with rules, right?
Yeah, okay, that's
So-
true. Yeah.
A rule is, if it's one of the ones where you listen to from old to new, as opposed to the news ones, then don't go back before the first one you listened to.
Yeah.
Don't go, oh, they added more. I'm gonna jump back in time.
We should also have a rule about, well, I don't know if this happens in podcasts. In, like, news feeds, sometimes they will only include the most recent 10 articles. And,
Yep.
but my, like, newsreader, I'm able to, like, star something really old. It remembers that there are old things,
Exactly.
even though they're not in the feed anymore. So we can't just rely on the feed directly.
That's right.
We need to, like, consume the feed and then keep it.
So we need to have a local cache of the feed,
Yes.
or things that we
Yeah.
might care about the
And
past.
that is a really common thing, especially with more advanced podcast apps. If you're not using one of the really, really dumb ones, and I'm not saying the dumb ones to be disparaging. Sometimes that's like the cleanest, best one to use. It's like the really, really simple.
The one that doesn't have 1,000 rules.
Yeah, the one that doesn't have all the rules. In a sense,
What's it called?
it allows you to outsource your rules to the new software. You know, like the new cool stuff. You know, like. But if you're, well, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I just checked AntennaPod, which I use.
Yeah.
And it can sort by timestamp, duration, or title.
Yeah.
That's it. It won't let you based on when
So-
it got into the feed or anything else.
I've got Podcast Addict, and I'm pretty sure I've seen somewhere deep down into the guts of one of those menus that you can define your own heuristics.
Oh, sure. But I'm just saying,
So,
I think what he was suggesting is you could make up fake times and use that to order them. if
Yeah,
your podcast
absolutely.
app
Absolutely.
relies on
So
times, and then it'll get weird because you're not going to really know when stuff happened.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that would be the idea here is like a lot of this complexity you could have baked into your particular podcast app. Another option would be, and that's kind of what I was getting at with the XML output, is that in a sense you treat that as one podcast. And what happens is you just make it forcibly restart, dump everything it knows, basically get the dumbest possible podcast listener, attach it.
The player.
Yeah, the dumbest player possible, and attach it to your podcast, feed thing. And then just make it so it aggressively prunes everything. And so then you just refresh, like, oh, okay, it's next morning, refresh the podcast. And it's probably going to delete, like it may delete episodes, it'll change orders, things, and whatever. And it'll have downloaded all the episodes that you wanted, which you've probably got a cache or something up here or somewhere. Again, not a, we're having, you heard all of these rules that we're coming up with. We don't also need to also come up with codecs and things like that. Like we can one thing at a time.
That doesn't seem like a good solution to the, I don't want the list of things, the queue of things that's playing to change in the middle.
Yeah.
You have, even if it's in the same application, if you model it as two separate pieces, you have the feed builder and the dumb player, and then you can have a setting to automatically refresh or manually refresh. So unless you manually refresh or like go days without opening it, it just sticks with, the dumb player just sticks with whatever list it populated last time. It populates the list and then plays that list until you refresh or walk away for days or.
So honestly, I think the player doesn't need to be RSS. It just needs to be like get a list.
Yeah, get the list.
Yeah.
Here's a list to play.
Yeah. So, you can see how one simple question of like, man, it's really annoying, my podcast app can't, like, I don't know how to get it to do this one thing differently. Like, as so often happens when we're making software, you open up that can and then, all this shit comes out. So, what are we gonna do? My thinking on this was kind of as I was getting at, is like, let's have you give it multiple feeds, and it spits out extra feeds. The other things we have already identified that we need from this. even if we don't have a historical record of all the ones we have played in the past, in order to get even some of the more basic rules, the really common rules we get from podcast apps, we need a notion of the order we're going to play them in the future. But but on top of that, we've already identified several reasons why we would need historical stuff about the past. Because a rule like this one, about like, oh, if it's been, if I'm like 3/4 of the way through this season of Serial, or more likely, I'm 2 episodes into like a 12 episode season or something. I don't remember how many
Do podcasts have seasons?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That is
especially
I know
once
it's something like Bad Voltage will say, hey, it's season 12.
Well, yeah, so they don't necessarily have a mechanism for identifying it. So that would be how you identify the seasons. So that is definitely, but that's the thing is what I would say is up here. That's part of what's nice about these 3 examples is so daily tech news headlines is if you missed more than a couple of days in a row, you don't need to listen to the other ones. There's no point in that. Maybe if you're going to listen to several, you want to listen to them in air date order, to the oldest one first and then go to newer. But you don't need to listen to one older than a certain amount of time. Like, there's no point in that.
Oh, that's.
There's questions about archival or whatever, and that may be valued in its own right.
That's different. What you just said is different than rule number 1.
If there's a newest episode, play that first.
A newest.
Yeah.
So today's episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you just said was if you have 3 episodes of it, you won't play them in chronological order. Which is
Yeah, that's different. Yeah, that's different from that first rule. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's the thing. There's all different forms of these rules.
So what we
I
need
don't
to
think
do
there
is,
is one set of rules which is going to make everybody happy. What it is you want to make it so that there are a few really simple rules to see. Which of those do you want to apply? And that's the trick. There's several layers of this. There's also the UI element of this. Like, you can make these rules arbitrarily complicated. With this, like, I haven't checked for sure. I think the level of complexity we have described here may already be Turing complete.
Yes.
So
what we need is IP tables, but for podcast work.
yeah, so yeah,
Let's write it in BPF.
an intentionally simpler language like IP tables or BPF. Yeah. It's bad when that's what we're turning to. Is like let's intentionally get a language that's simpler, like legendarily complicated things to configure right languages. Yeah, let's do that.
I think it should all be YAML.
Send
Yeah. Well, yeah, YAML, JSON, whatever. I think I'm gonna put my foot down and say no TOML. I'm tired of that crap.
I said mostly YAML because
Yeah.
there's like
I looked
2
up.
totally different camps.
I looked up what TOML means because I couldn't.
Yes.
I remember what YAML means, but I couldn't remember what TOML means. You know what it
Tom's
means?
own markup language.
Obvious.
Oh,
It means the Tom's obvious markup language.
Yes.
That's not obvious. I can never remember.
How about the Windows one?
That's why you're not
I.
I mean, it might have started as kind of obvious because it was derived
I
from
and I.
But
Yeah.
there's double
Yeah.
square brackets.
Started.
Alright.
It might have started.
Well, in a meeting, my boss said that YAML was yet another markup language, and I just had to bite my tongue because YAML ain't markup language.
Yeah. Well, then there's like,
Yeah.
I'm still a fan of the conf
Because it's
files.
not
So
markup,
those are,
it's
Yeah.
oriented.
basically a list of environment
Just equals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea with the conf files is that you could just source it before you go and run your command.
That reminds me of when I was first learning Bash, and it took me a long time to figure out that spaces were load bearing when you're doing environment variables.
Oh,
This
yes.
is like, I don't know, high school or something.
Oh, what was it? We had a problem in production once because an environment variable had, I don't remember, maybe it had a space in the value.
Yeah.
No, maybe it was a space in the key. I don't know. It took us a very long time to figure out because when you exec into the pod, what do you run? Bash, because Bash is there. what was the service running as? SH. It took so long to figure out that SH would not load the environment variable. It would just skip over this one, but bash would. So if you bashed in, you got the environment variable. Yeah, that's
I remember back in the day, I think it was Ubuntu, I don't know if it's still the case, if you put a space in front of your terminal command, it would not go into your bash history.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something you can configure on your end.
Configurable?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it was bash specific or.
No, it's just a common
In
configuration.
fact, my sysadmin specifically said, hey, they're auditing everything with Splunk now. You don't want to see what you're typing in instead of space in front of it.
That's something you can configure yourself,
Okay.
and so you can turn that off, or you can turn it on, and it's unless you're actually looking through your bash config, you won't know. And also, if they intentionally compiled bash without that, then so yeah, I would never rely on that.
I wonder if agents could do that too, and then not have their commands logged, so they might need to.
But no, I don't think they're set up to do that.
Just delete the log. Not they set themselves up.
You're running arbitrary code, so I mean,
Space
it's nice
history
to
clear.
limit it,
History seeking.
Yeah. So yeah, we've already identified all kinds of rules for this stuff. So I think you know found a juicy section to attack of just like the thing that just handles the rules and that's all that it does. So yeah. So that means let's start making some code, right?
Go one in it.
No. Yes, but I usually start with go.mod. So, or no, go doc. Okay, doc to go. Okay. All right. Package pod Q. Package pod Q. What is it? Yoink. Alright. There we go. Easy mode. Alright. Go. Which version am I running on this log? I actually don't know.
No
Two
dash.
Or two dashes.
No, just one.
One dash is just wrong.
Stop.
No,
No,
it's
because
not.
go flags. Yeah, the default flags package does not differentiate.
I know,
They're
it's annoying.
short, long. Yeah.
That's why I use Cobra.
126.4. Okay. Fair enough. What is it? Oh yeah, that's right.
Claude-P.
What?
Claude-P.
Claude-P. I think I've got Claude installed in this. I don't use it much. I don't use it much on my personal computer. I usually use the chat stuff if I'm gonna do anything. Okay. All right. I like making it a little more generic than that. Okay. So, what do we do first? Usually going for a interface is usually what I go for. So there's the question: is what does our interface look like here?
Make their PKG.
What?
Make their PKG.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you have a slice, an array coming in, and the output is the sorted version, like the desired order.
What's consuming it? Is it the reader? Is it an XML? Are we hosting an RSS feed? What's consuming the interface?
It's a good question. Good question.
Reckon, going back to the idea that you have a dumb podcast app, that dumb podcast app is already going to speak RSS, so you probably want to have a bunch of RSS feeds, specified by URL or whatever as inputs, and then your rules as inputs, and then XML as outputs, because that's the most likely thing. And then you can tailor the XML of like fake the dates or fake the title to be 01 track 1 or whatever. But yeah, the output format would probably be the XML, and then you can throw it into whatever else,
Okay.
rather than trying to do a UI on it.
I don't think you need RSS between PodQ and the player.
Well, what's
I
the
think
player
you're
going to
gonna-
consume then?
Well, it can consume anything, but forcing it into RSS, I feel like you run into a lot of problems with the player being like, oh no, I have the RSS already. Like RSS is for ordered things, and this is not an ordered thing.
Are we
Well,
using,
it is an order thing though.
are we using an off-the-shelf app, or are we making our own app?
Figured that
I assume we. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
figure that like, given that the rules engine is so complex, we don't want to build a podcast reader app as well. That's scope expansion.
Sure, I just think that convincing a normal podcast app to completely ignore all of the nice things about RSS.
Well, we just put the nice things about RSS into the feed so
No,
that
the nice things about RSS are like it can be cached, it's append only.
Yep.
If it gets longer suddenly, that means there's new episodes. It doesn't get shorter. I don't know.
I think we can start with like an interface that takes in an unordered list, then orders it according to the rules, like the rule engine. Then you can build on top of it whatever you like. You can add specific format the output, the input, like add the niceties, but like
Yeah.
the meat and potatoes is like the rules and how you get some chaos, and then you order it according to these rules. You can tweak them.
Is there an alternative format? And maybe we do want our own app, but first we should figure out the other part. Is there an alternative format that isn't RSS that is likely to be accepted by an off-the-shelf app?
HTML. I have it. It's great.
So maybe you have an interface that's defined that could be consumed by a built-in app, or could be consumed by an HTTP handler to generate a dumb web page.
Or even JSON, like an API. Like
Yeah, but I already have an app. It plays media.
But do we actually need an interface? Or should we just make a really simple HTML page and have code that feeds it and generalize once there's a point to generalizing?
I think when we say interface, like we mean the Go interface, right?
Yeah, but why?
It's just the contract, like what you want, and then you can implement that interface in Struct.
I tend to over-engineer things, and the way I have gotten around that is training myself out of building interfaces before I actually need them. And so when I hear, let's build an interface, I think, why do we need an interface? Why aren't we using a concrete type? What concrete advantage do we get from using an abstract type if we don't have a use for it?
So normally, we would make an interface. But one of the things that definitely comes up when you find yourself looking really hard for the interface, maybe you're looking at the wrong part. I think the nouns, I'm allergic to object-oriented programming in some regards. In this particular case, I think it suits us.
Are we calling Go object-oriented?
We're going to be doing C can be object-oriented if you write code.
In the small talks.
Establishing the terminology, people disagree
Some
about
people
that.
think it's more object-oriented than Java.
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion.
Go with the classic definition, then yeah, it's very object-oriented.
It's more, are we going to, we should agree
Saying
what we're
the same
saying
thing
before
is-
we start using words.
Okay. URLs for now. We could probably make it a little bit more clever later. Just make a URL string.
Go on to URL to URL.
What? We could, but are we gonna keep it as a URL, or are we gonna make it be a local path or whatever, which could still be a URL, it could be
Right.
a file URL. But then at that point, are we also going to have a local cache of these things in addition to the URL, and the URL is helping to be the identifier for the episode?
I mean, URLs are flexible because you can use even your own scheme,
Yeah.
whatever.
This is true.
So what you're saying is it's URIs, not URLs. And then that covers.
URIs, yeah.
And then we move on.
Weirdly, I find the URL type to be annoying because you can't just construct one. You have to parse a string.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we need a URL?
So we're
Is
back
a
to
string good
strings.
enough?
Yeah, yeah. So, which date format are we gonna be using for this? Like, my head always goes to Unix timestamp, but.
No, the only right.
I still
Design 60.
Yeah.
That's the default.
Which one are we gonna get from Golang?
333. They
Go
Is it,
only
is
have
that,
333.
it's been a while since I messed with
It's
this.
close enough
Yeah.
to ISO 8601.
Okay.
You
Go-
can
go
fractional
only
some
have-
default predefined
Yeah, that's the,
RFC 3339.
the nano version, right, has the,
Oh, yeah. I'm always
Parentheses?
annoyed. I have one
Oh, yes.
API point where it's like, we use ISO 8601 and this is a date stamp. And then they go, enter the date time, but it won't accept it. It's like, well, date time is the date, isn't it?
Go dot time dot, what was it?
Time.
so actually, if you just make the type of the field time.time,
Yep.
like JSON will handle it.
Your choices are time.time or integer
That's
timestamp.
fine. We'll do that.
One select it, validate the library, struct tag it to your format.
Okay. So if we've got,
Title,
okay, yeah, some other, metadata. And there's other things we can put in there like duration and whatever, but then like where are you gonna draw the line? Like, do we include, like some of these podcast apps have a first class notion of theme or like genre or like your rating versus the public internet's rating and like you definitely jump the shark at that point.
And album art.
What?
Album art, gotta have
For
that.
I feel like album art, well, yeah, because there's album art on the podcast and there's album art on the episode because they can be different.
And the chapters.
For the rules engine that we have, what is the absolute smallest struct that we can get away with that can actually satisfy all the rules?
It's a good question.
So,
I mean, maybe we also need some kind of timestamp to define out where we left off. Because I believe one of the rules was saying about, I paused this episode, so we need to somehow keep that information there.
Yep.
or would it be the same struct, like the episode itself and the playing of the episode? Like are these two different entities or is it the same one?
Oh wow.
I think it's a different entity, like one playing. When did we start to play this? Because so we can know if it's been a while, do we need to rewind or like there's another struct that's different.
Additional information about the episodes.
do we need to have a concept of, because some of them are just standalone episodes, some are
Yeah,
part of the
part of the
series,
season,
how do we
yeah.
put back to that?
That's not an attribute on the episode though, that's an attribute on the show, podcast.
Yeah, but if you need a link back.
Right, but aren't we,
I was like, yeah, what
So
level
which
do we store
direction
that
are the
as?
links going?
Are we
Yeah.
designing a database or something?
Yes.
Tables?
That is exactly what we're doing right now.
I'm sort of imagining our basic algorithm is here's a set of slices. Choose the next item off of the slice. Pick a slice.
Well,
Pop an item.
I think that's the trick in this case. What are the basic primitives that we can agree on? And I think so far we are all on the same page. That there is a thing called an episode.
Yeah.
Now, what are the relevant items about an episode that you care about keeping? These are interesting questions we could have. But we are on the same page that there's a thing called an episode, and that is a worthwhile unit to track.
I think we need another unit for playing an episode, like a play or something, like a specific instance of when we started to play that episode. Now, yeah.
Also,
We stop.
it's easy to modify structs. Why are we worrying about what fields the structs have right now?
So it's easy to modify structs, but I will also say, now this is putting on my C programmer's hat. If you find yourself wanting to modify structs a lot, maybe you have the wrong structs. It's kind of a generalized programming concept, which I know a lot of people like to talk crap about C, but the reality is it turns out there are a few good programmers in the C world as well.
That sounds
Only
like
if
the,
you-
that sounds like the object-oriented open close principle.
Yeah, well, and that it came from somewhere. And in a sense, I mean, in object-oriented we call it open and close, but then in functional programming we may call it, immutable or any number of things. The concepts have been around for a very long time. Side effect free, whatever. The things that we have discussed that are relevant to deciding the order in which it is built. While title is a relevant thing, I will say it hasn't come up yet. Nobody has suggested that we are very seriously considering an alphabetical order rule. If they did, then we would need title. But I think that is a meaningful thing to add, relevant to things like having podcast art and whatnot. But it's not necessarily the thing that makes us choose which order to play with it. URI, release date are things that are going to be relevant. Podcast, feed, what feed did it come from, is going to be relevant as well.
Oh, you're gonna do. Isn't the feed just a list of episodes?
It's a list of episodes that are all from the same series or whatever, and we are interleaving the series, so it is very relevant.
And it's,
Right, but shouldn't we just pop off of the next list instead of
Well,
iterating
it's-
every episode that we have and then?
here's another surprise, a rule we haven't put up yet, but one that I can tell you comes up. What happens if the same episode is in multiple feeds?
What?
That happens.
How?
Cross-posting. I don't know how often it happens outside of tech. Inside of tech, it happens a lot.
So then we would need like a platform.
Well, I mean, like,
You can deduplicate by URI.
if they're the same URI.
Side note, I don't think it's possible to extricate the player from the pod queue because the pod queue has to know what you have played.
Yeah, the player needs to like send back metadata or.
Yeah. Yes, to a degree. Again, like, we can play a little bit with that. So let's say that you have Last.fm installed. There are standard locations, like, I don't know if it's literally a Unix socket, I've not actually dug into the code behind Last.fm. It tries to be very, very generous about the different ways that it knows that you're playing something. And so I know one of the things that they actively listen to on Android, for example, is that they are listening to the system-wide media is being played rule set. And then inside of their app, they have which other apps is media being played by this app, does that get counted and then recorded and sent up to Last.fm or not? And so if you're like, if I'm on a website and I'm browsing, do I want websites? I'm listening to audio like in an ad on a website, does that get reported to Last.fm? I think it's something that it is actually capable of doing. And I think it's turned off by default, but I think it is in fact capable of that. So
I'm looking at Serial Productions listed podcasts. They're not consistent about how they label episodes.
Yep. Yep. I am not surprised to hear that.
Oh, there's EP period with a number. There's episode with a number. There's part with a number. There's chapter with a number. There's also chapter with a Roman numeral.
Are you looking at the RSS feed?
Yeah, for just the
This
serial
is not the
podcast?
string. This is the data. in
I'm
the-
extracting the title. I didn't see any
Yeah.
clear.
Okay.
And this
I mean,
is
Netflix is always like season 1, episode 1, quote, episode 1, end quote.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is within one podcast, right?
If you look at the titles,
Yeah.
they do not have a consistent formatting for episode in the titles.
Is there not metadata for
I
which
didn't see
episode?
anything.
Oh man.
I mean, I'm not looking through looking at everything, but
I assumed that RSS would have a serial number or something.
You
that doesn't mean
can-
they'll get it right.
there
It seems like I remember either RSS or Adam had one and the other one didn't.
Well, and I've seen goofy stuff happen to where.
Well, yeah, now, then once you
they
get
don't
into
get it right.
non-compliant, which these
Well,
days.
I don't think it
who's-
was a required field or anything. It was
Yeah.
just you can do this, and
Yes.
you're free to mess it up. So.
Yeah. It's like, are your XML properly formatted with all the backslashes or not? You know? Like, I would not be in the slightest bit surprised to come across a podcast.
Well, the podcast I'm subscribed to, I think they timestamp it with when they record or something because it always pops up like a couple days before when they actually, when it gets into your
Yeah.
feed. So it goes.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense, but then you sometimes get podcasts with put the episodes timestamped for the future.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? Like, did you think that we weren't gonna see this? Or is that your suggested listening time? Or what is this? You know?
A very long time ago, I knew a guy who, for whatever reason, if you set the date on his computer past like, I don't know what it was, past 2000, it just broke.
Yeah, there were viruses and such that would be timestamp activated and
But-
stuff, especially in the late 90s.
So he would hold his time, his like computer's clock time back in like 1995.
Yeah.
And then when you would send email, the email would have 1995. And if you had if you had enough mail in your inbox where you couldn't see the first message, you would never see the mail from him because it was always
Yeah, it was the
he
oldest.
sent you mail in 1995. Wow.
Yeah.
So there is an iTunes namespaced episode tag.
Oh, okay.
There's also a GUID tag, and some of the GUIDs are S03-E08, as in season 3,
Oh.
episode 8, as a GUID.
That's globally unique.
Yeah, that, this is like,
Also, S is definitely X.
Yeah. So you see the problem.
People are a problem.
I know where this goes. I have an entire software package to figure this out because what's all the time differences? What's all the published differences?
Yeah.
There's another one where the GUID is a acronym of the season name. So it's NWP-E01 as a GUID.
Would you believe that gate and terminal information from airlines is the exact same problem?
Yeah, the extra fun one is when San Francisco renames all of their terminals and gates overnight.
Or Palm Beach renames their airport in the next 10 minutes.
Wait, DVI is changing to something?
DJT.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Really? Yes, really.
Wait, is it still called Palm Beach and just the short code has changed?
Some of the short codes change right about now. Some of them change in August. There's three different ways you identify an airport in the United States. There's the ICAO, the IATA, and the LID. The ICAO address and the LID changes right now. It's technically July 9th already.
But isn't one of those the 4-letter instead of the 3-letter?
Yes, ICAO is 4-letter.
Okay. Well, so
The,
that's
US
a little better.
US is really lucky in that almost every airport, IATA and the lid are the same.
Yeah.
And the ICAO is just a K prefix in front of that. Works for almost the entire comment. Almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Dubois Airport is an exception. Don't get rerouted to Dublin.
Yeah.
But because IATA and ICAO are different agencies with different timelines, the renaming of an airport for different standards happens at different times, not even in the same month.
Oh, good lord.
That's my problem.
Yeah, yeah.
So if somebody booked a ticket under the old name and the name changed since, like their ticket.
You're booking tickets on the IATA standard, which doesn't change until August, so that's next month's problem.
Okay.
One time I booked a connecting flight, and the service that my company uses flew me from Austin to Miami, and then my connecting flight was from Palm Beach.
Oh, that's the case when they use regional locator IATAs versus airports, because the IATA code is.
And those are, yeah.
So I had a 4-hour layover in which I think I was expected to drive to another airport.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
Paris
that
has a similar
versus
problem,
Fort
so does
Lauderdale
the
is
UK.
regional, that versus West Palm is not.
And the other
You could
thing
take
is
the train.
that the IATA code can also be train stations and bus stops. I've had problems with people forwarding train schedules into the aviation land.
Yeah, so
They don't really go fast enough.
speaking of the different podcast sources, I found 2 different URLs for Serial Productions podcast, and one appears to be a historical record of, I don't know, but they have the same GUIDs for the ones that have actual real GUIDs.
I mean, at least there's some level of consistency somewhere, right?
I think one of them has more history than the other one, but it's not entirely clear. Or they just ordered them differently?
What is the verb that we would use for a cue? What is it that,
Q.
EQ?
NQ.
yeah, DQ,
Wait, is this the thing that the player
Enumerate?
plays, or is this?
this is the thing that will give us the list.
You put in a bunch of
Well,
podcasts?
it's we're talking about an interface here, so this is just gonna, this is gonna be the output interface.
The output.
Yeah. Because I think that, because we wouldn't call it a queue if it was the input. The queue is what comes out of this. It may also be an RSS feed. Maybe it won't be an RSS feed. Maybe we integrate it directly into some podcast app or something. But that is, the queue is the output.
Next.
Sort?
Sort. List, I guess.
Yeah.
Feels weird.
Oh, a list, and it gives you a slice?
Yeah, it gives you a slice of episode.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So within the struct that implements this, you need to have your config and your rules and all that.
Yeah.
That, okay. That informs the behavior of this.
Yep. So potentially, I don't know if you necessarily would, potentially you could do something that had like a metadata, like a higher order evaluation of the queues themselves. So if you had a really complicated world, it was something like more complicated than even just don't do this many episodes in a row, but something like, you know, oh, if 2 episodes in a row are longer than this amount of time, but then that would probably just make it easier to just take 2 different queues or something, or to consume a queue and then to give another queue out or something like that. It'd be like high level, like last pass, like, you know, or maybe the better example would be you have some level of awareness of what is the consumer in this particular case. And so you know the capabilities of the particular one you're looking at. So you would say, oh, downloading on local dumb podcast app, okay, however long the queue inbound was, I'm only giving you back 5. And I have to make sure you don't need credits, like to go log into something else. I'm gonna go download them and make them available on this URL right now for you to download locally on that device. And then as soon as we get that, I know that device doesn't have any notion at all of whether or not things have been played, so I'm just gonna assume everything that happened on that device has been played or nothing has been. And so then when you come back, somehow we indicate whether or not you have listened to any of them, and if we, again, sky's the limit. You can make this shit as complicated as you want it to be.
I think this is called a podcast.
No, this is what comes out.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, but what comes out is a podcast.
Is a podcast itself.
Yeah. And
Potentially, but
the implementation of list will be like, order these episodes from something else. Could be from RSS.
Yeah, but that's the thing, up till now, all the podcasts had external URIs, where they had their source of truth that we went and fetched them. Now, if this is a podcast, there might not be a source of truth. Like, we are the source of truth in a sense, there's not a URI.
I guess I'm saying that your implementations are things like chronological podcast and reverse chronological podcast and only give me the last 5 episodes podcast.
Yeah, that's fair. In a sense, those, yeah. They could be surfaced on the outside as a podcast.
I'm probably calling it Q, but I think this is, I think it's podcast.
Is this the input or the output?
This is,
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think you have a new podcast from RSS feed.
I think this is a feed,
Yeah.
and it's both.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
You call it a Q, call it a feed.
One or more feeds in, one feed out.
okay. So this is the feed, and is this the queue then?
Then we can make
No,
it like
list
a
is-
modular
list.
synthesizer and have it feedback on itself with all kinds of cool stuff.
So is list just a raw list, or is this a smart
This
list?
is an ordered list.
My point is does the logic for this is a news feed, I want to order this newest to oldest, or vice versa for other feeds, does that live inside of the feed implementation, or inside of, does that live inside of the implementation for, is there a first to last feed and a last to first feed, and then a smash everything together feed?
I think so.
Or does that ordering logic live inside of the smashing everything together feed?
I think we just
What
have it.
I'm looking for here is the thing that when you call this, it gives me the list of episodes. And so if you were gonna make the literal feed, which is gonna be an XML document that we serve over HTTP, what that would look like is just consuming whatever this is, including the episode list here, and then creating your RSS file based off of the results of a full dump of this. And if alternatively you were doing local playing on this, instead of creating an RSS file that you can put into a web server, it's going to be getting this list here, and then it's going to be churning out of that.
I think we want to have, I don't know if I want to call it order, but have a method that takes a rule thingy and gives you the list. And that rule thingy can be just as is, or it can be, here's my rule set, here's my state as part of that rule determiner thing.
Well, here's another option then, for making it even more vague.
And
This
I
this
think
gets
that's what
back
if you start
to
implementing
the,
a goal iterator, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, iterator. Yeah. That's in 127, right? Or was it 126?
No, it's been in for a couple of releases.
Yeah. Being able
I've
to
not
rank,
messed with them before.
being able to rank over a function.
Well, I know that. Okay, yeah, that's.
If you're reading the code, it looks nice. If you're trying to debug the code,
Yeah, implementing it feels wrong
it's
and
easy
backwards.
to, it's, I don't know. It's not hard to implement. It's not hard to call, and then you get to the debugger, and it's just.
It
I
took
just
me a
think
very long
music
time
is
to
fun.
realize that yield was not a keyword.
It just what it's doing feels slightly ajar compared to just typical.
Yeah, the actual execution flow is
imperative.
pretty screwy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like normal Go imperative. Do things in line. It's like
But if you
handing
have a
off
whole
control
iterator,
here and it comes back.
That kind of iterator without a loop is very simple. Or, yeah.
Do we need to switch it to one?
No,
No,
this
this
is
is fine.
better.
So how about this then? Q, and a Q just gives you next.
This means like it has an internal state and you need to initialize it.
Oh, but that's just implementation details. This is, I'm biased, but this is the structure. It's like, yeah, you probably just do this. And then you can lazily decide how many to pull.
Yeah.
But see, I would kind of like to be able to say, okay, I'm using these rules now. Then I've listened to these many, and now I want to switch my rule set, but I still want to use the same thing. So it's not a queue with the rules always applied statically.
Or does
No,
it creating a queue?
For this interface, it doesn't matter whether it's, whether it is rules applied or not. It's just a thing that you can call next on.
I mean, I think it's attractive to use the same interface with input and output, but I think they end up having different needs and slightly. I think maybe that could work, but trying to do that now before the actual implementation exists seems like getting ahead of ourselves a bit. Instead of trying to reason about what do we need, how do we build an interface for both, just say, what do we need for the output? Do that.
Yeah, I just think it's all the same. I think it's actually all the same thing. Maybe not. But I think it's all, I think a reverse queue, a chronological order is this, a reverse chronological order is this, a give me all the, a no rules is this, an interleave the episodes between two podcasts is this.
But if you have something like, so if the thing that's smashing them all together, when you have situations like, okay, well, I need to go back and look at what the user has already listened to and look at the historical record, then the code that is synthesizing the merged queue might need a more capable method than just next. It might need to say, okay, well, what do you have cached?
The outside call, yeah, but you
Yeah,
need
yeah.
to provide
You're
that to
talking
the
about
implementation.
the inside of the queue. We're talking about the outside of the queue. So this is the.
Well, so if the things we're reading from, if the sources, I mean I guess it depends on where you're putting that interface. If you're just putting that interface over top of the RSS feed, then sure. But if you're putting that if you're saying, okay, the reverse chronological versus forward chronological is a different implementation than the.
Both of those conform to this interface though.
But the merging the queues is probably going to end up needing more than just get me the next episode.
I don't think so. I think you have a different opinion. But I think you're gonna have a set of
We work back from
slices,
examples.
and you need to pick the next episode from this set of slices.
Well, we don't have a set of slices right now.
But the
This is just an
implementation can.
Yeah.
All we have to do is pick the next thing. I think at first I thought this was a sorting problem, but I think you were right that it's just a pick next problem. But you could pick all next until they're all gone.
But see, I would kind of like to be able to sort one way and sort another, and then take those two and compare them or something like that if I
Yeah.
wanted to get fancy. And this way, you're kind of exhausting, the stream versus. I would almost like to have list in, list out.
I mean, you can have.
Yeah, but you can have a queue that's 2 lists in, and interleaves them, and 1 list out. This is
No,
a
I know,
list
but I'm
out.
saying that I'm going to have to keep creating new queues.
We can have
Give me
both.
a-
With
Like,
this, yeah, with
both.
this conversation, my head is definitely going towards the idea a reader and a closer are not in opposition to each other. You would have a single thing which implemented both. When you're talking about composition of interfaces,
Yeah.
we're not talking about alternative
Yeah, I just, yeah.
Like
If
if
I
you
was gonna
add
add, I think I
another
would just
method
skip
that's
the next
less,
thing.
that uses next under the hood, and you can have both use cases, like
Yeah.
list them all or just the next one.
Yeah, so this could be a thin layer on top of a more capable system.
Yep.
So you could just use this.
So for the,
I think I would
the
skip
dumb
this.
podcast player can use this, and then whatever you want to expand out from there can use a more descriptive interface.
I think you might need peak.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not implying here that you've actually popped.
Oh.
We haven't DQ'd.
Whoa.
It's a
I
peak.
don't like that. Because now you really
There
are
is no
iterating.
state.
You're not,
This interface does not imply that the state has changed. We
Then I
are
wouldn't
not,
call it
we
a
are
queue
not
then.
changing.
Does next, do 2 subsequent calls to next return the same thing?
It's an iterator.
Potentially, yeah.
It's an iterator, not a queue.
So you need to consume it at some point to move
Implements-
things along.
If they were returning different things, I would have called that DQ, not next. Because DQ does something. Next doesn't necessarily. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. It's vague on purpose.
Yeah, I don't like the word queue then.
That's fine. I know. What do you want to do instead?
I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask because I just do the things in order and don't care. So this is not my bailiwick.
We usually do, but I hadn't actually checked. I don't see any over there. They're not here.
What was it? News, serial, and
SE radio or whatever.
tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have these 3 podcasts as input, and for news we have that rule of like reverse chronological order, and then we can have a rule that's like only the last 5. And for serial, we're gonna do normal chronological, and we're gonna do restart the season or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then tech just normal order.
Which
I
would
think-
be chronological again?
This would be normal chronological. I think all of these things are a queue. This one is gonna, I think, should look at the next episode for each one of these and choose one.
But I think you need the rule engine to know about all of them. I don't think you can apply the rules.
You don't
per
think you can do
queue.
them in order?
Well,
Reverse
it depends on your
chronological,
rules.
last 5?
Your rules might want to say I want the ratio of this podcast to this podcast to be 2 to 1 or something.
So you'd have 2 inputs and then you'd have a ratio rule.
No, maybe that wasn't a
You'd
good
have a-
example, but I
you'd
can
have a
see the
second
rules
tech
for needing
podcast.
more information.
And you could have a,
Can't spell.
you have an interleave rule.
Yeah, but if I say I want to go back
Yeah.
15 episodes in this one and start there, then you're not going to have that if you're just, unless you aren't just looking at the front of the queue, you're going to have
So-
more information available.
Yeah, so for instance, the rule that says if it's been this long, just start from the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
Next is not the right abstraction for that. Because like, next is not enough, like you need to go back. So you need like the whole thing.
Next just gives you the next one, right? And here next means the
You would
first start of the
implement
season.
next.
But next
to do that
depends on the
logic.
rule, so does each rule have its own queue? Like
No,
next
the-
for
I think
this
the
rule.
rule is a queue.
The queue has the rule that
Yeah,
next.
so queue is not
applies.
really the final queue, it's just
Yeah, yeah,
according
yeah.
to a rule. Yeah, because like for the same podcast, like you have different
but
rules and each rule
This
says.
is also a queue. It's a queue with an RSS as an input.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the RSS feeding into a thing that has rules. Those rules might be look at the back at the previous thing. That implies that we won't ever have 2 different rules that have to look at each other's state.
True.
But that could happen.
Like what?
I am sure some user will put in a feature request that sounds entirely reasonable, and then you start implementing it, and it turns out you have this.
Yeah, like if you say you have a podcast and then you have another podcast reacting to that podcast and you want to have some kind of smarts that says find if this person talks about this other person's episode with me
It sounds
in
like
it
it's
or
out of
whatever.
scope.
It feels to me like these 2 rules will never interact is an ideal, is something that's not actually, you're gonna find a case in the real world that violates it.
It sounds like we can do that in Rev 3.
Here's where my head was going at with this. So we got all these different RSS feeds. We also have, based off of the conversation we've had so far. I'm going to again use last effect, not that that's actually what we're using, but more as shorthand for the ordered list of everything we have ever played. That's my shorthand for that. Okay. So we got last step. Okay. So we have all of our podcasts here. We've got our last event. We also have a list of
Rules?
rules. 1, 2, 3.
And a rule could be podcast specific or applies to all podcasts. Like that's
Yes,
not.
and there could be some that go to all podcasts, ones that go to one podcast, one of the other.
So basically, a rule has eligibility criteria and then sorting criteria.
Yeah. And my way I'm thinking about this is we take all of this, and from that, we spit out a list of episodes. It's like, cool, but with, as we have already discussed, do we make this list arbitrarily long? Well, yes. This list needs to be arbitrarily long. This list needs to have the whole thing as evaluated right now. Even though we know from the get-go, this list is actually not very useful in that form to anything that's going to be listening to. Because it's unlikely. I mean, it's not impossible. It's unlikely. That you're going to listen to every single one of these things all in one go before any of these things gets up. It's possible, but not super likely. After this, now we have where my head was Q. And I don't like that name. I just don't know what better name to use than that.
Smart
and this is
feed.
a much shorter thing. Playlist is what my head originally went to. But then kind of, well, okay, is this the playlist? Well, it is, but this is a more complete
Lineup?
playlist than we're actually going to be playing. But
Something like that.
this is the maybe actionable playlist. The part that we're actually going to put out into an RSS feed, or actually into output from the thing that's going to actually play music, if we're going to play music with it, or in this case, possibly literally, the only thing this does is just one at a time, and it just reevaluates the whole thing every single time, and it gives you one at a time.
So-
However you want to do that.
So just to sum it up, we have one big method or function or whatever that takes in all the RSS feeds, all the current rules, and the current state, and then it spits
And
out the
your-
ordered list.
Your history and all of your rules, whole thing, process, and then
Okay.
boom,
Yeah.
gives you a list which is not actionable. A list which has everything in it. It's the whole thing. But as a result of it being the whole thing, it's kind of silly. You're not going. You could have thousands of episodes of this thing. You're not actually going to listen to thousands of episodes before you reevaluate the thing.
My brain just goes to this is shell script land, and we're outputting a big list, and then we pipe it to head or tail or sword or whatever.
What's the mechanical difference between the list and the queue? Like if we're doing I mean, if you have something that's pulling one at a time, that's one thing, but if you have like an HTML page or an RSS feed, what's the difference in that consuming the queue versus just consuming the list?
Because with the queue, if you know for sure that some episodes will be first regardless, you don't have to finish processing. Like if you have some rule that says, if this happens, these are the 5 first episodes,
Okay, so
and we only displayed those 5, then we stop there. You
Is
don't
the
have to
list-
evaluate the rest.
an abstract thing, or are we literally talking about a slice?
Either, so I have not specified whether or not we're actually going to populate the entire list or not. This is a concept. This list, maybe it does literally exist. I think if we were to go create an RSS feed, maybe we would do that.
It would seem most natural to me to collapse those two and have it be an abstract iterator-ish thing, even if it's not the time you can range over.
I'm okay with that, but
And then you just say, okay, if it's an RSS feed, then you just keep on calling it and emitting new XML elements until it says no more.
and that was where my thinking was in this queue next depth thing is that this chunk will tell you how many things are in here, because that could be relevant. If it turns out that there's only 5 things in here, well, that changes maybe what we're actually going to end up doing. Maybe we will if we see the 5 things, yeah, we're going to go download all 5. If there's 10,000 things in here, we're not going to go download 10,000 things. Maybe we have some local rule that, or again, your really dumb podcast app that we make to use this. We're already talking about dumb podcast apps. We'll make a new one, and that'll be on Android and iPhone and all this stuff. And all it does,
It has one giant play button.
it's like that old the old iPod shop, but that was when the Nintendo Wii was coming out. There was an internet meme for a while there that Nintendo was going to have the do button, and the new controller is just basically the easy button from Staples, and they just wrote do on it instead. You just hit the do button. The podcast app, the new podcast app is just gonna have the play button. That's it, and it's like play pause, and that's all it does. And then it downloads stuff in the background, a certain number of them, based off of how long it should go. And that would be all you need to do. Where this is maybe more realistic than just having a dedicated Android app or whatever is probably for real in a web page. If your version of playing this podcast app was no longer I install a thing, I go to a web page in my browser, either literally on my computer or on my phone, or maybe you've got it like a Chromecast thing or whatever. And all it is just a web front end to this. Well, okay, now that really is basically all it's doing at that point. It just has an episode, maybe it will pre-download the episode into the browser cache for you for like the next 2 or 3 or something, but like all it is play, pause, next, and you skip or whatever. At least that was where my head was going at on this stuff.
Thinking more about the serial, I feel like you might want to logically split it up into separate sub-podcasts for the seasons.
Yep, to parse them and to
Well, just, I mean, in terms of, if you are looking at, okay, well, I mean, maybe if, you know, if it was just season 1, you know, multiple seasons, but there are different sub-shows, you know, so there was, I don't remember, there's a few different topics that seem to be not, like, they're not seasons of a show.
Yeah.
They're just different serials. And so those, from the perspective of the user, it would make sense to say, oh, I'm listening to episode 3 in this one and episode 4 in this one.
yes.
What you're saying is we need to generalize this to be an M to N.
Well, then it even gets more complicated because I can tell you, some podcasts effectively combine multiple podcasts into the same stream.
Can I say something? Are we bike shedding right now? Like, this is so-
That's like
we are not.
rainbow.
We are like we aren't even close to having the paint.
Yeah, we can't even decide
We're
which paint store it is.
We're discussing what shape, you know, of the head on the nails.
Because
Like,
I think like the
do we want circles or ovals?
because I think the most challenging thing about this is like how to implement the rules engine and like how to have different rules interact with each other. I think if we start tackling that, like the rest would emerge by itself. Like
Yeah.
just agree on something simple now and we can amend it later on if it's not good.
Yeah. And that's why my thinking is the whole picture, because by having the whole picture, that gives us the most flexibility about what the rules can do. Because there's nothing that these rules are gonna do which can't be done with. It doesn't need to know anything that's out here other than what it's already got internally over here. If it needs to have some notion about like order, you know, sequencing or whatever, it can, you know, in a sense, maybe we're building this list and we have it available to the rules as we go along. That feels like a thing that could be.
Mm-hmm.
And so at every point in time, rather than this dotted line being here, maybe that's the answer, is it's not there, it's there. The current list of episodes, the whole list, the whole thing, is also a thing that rules can have, you know, be applied to.
But it is a fact because, like, depending on if it's been a minute since, if you are about to watch something in the list of episodes, you have something that's like old enough. We have that rule that says you need to go back to the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So you need, like, the rules need to be aware
Well,
of.
they
current
are aware of
list.
that. So the historical data is down here for sure.
Okay.
We do have that, but they may also, maybe the rules don't just have historical data. Maybe they have forward data.
Yeah, because that could affect your rules. Like if you
Yeah.
have too many things that are similar, maybe prune something because
Yeah.
you don't want too many similar things.
Yeah, I just think that is a rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but it
but-
needs that data. Like you, like
Yeah,
the
so-
output of previous rules is the input of other rules.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was that tree that I drew.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it may need the entire picture to have that.
But at the point in that tree flow, it will have the whole picture.
It would be part
yes.
of the state object. Like we have a big
Yeah.
state.
At the
and
very
it keeps
end, you
getting
put
updated.
tail,
Yeah.
and then you only get 5 episodes.
Yeah. So in a sense, one way we could handle that is, you know, we can just run them in a particular order, and we'll just put the rules in order. There are other. All of a sudden, the computer science brain started coming out, and it's like, I have an idea for like, no. Let's not do anything computer science clever yet. We're not doing anything. We're not going to do.
Like it's a DAG.
Well,
Oh,
so no,
it's
it's currently a DAG. What I was getting at
They're like
is
the
we can have
rules
rules
themselves.
we can
It's
get
like
rules that are not DAGs. And now we get into really complicated things, but you can solve those things anyways by other means. When you start getting into alternate evaluation strategies that get to and whether or not they are commutative, this. If you want to talk about that kind of stuff, come to the formal methods user group. We meet on the fourth Wednesday.
Okay.
This
No,
is
because
the-
like even
this is
the
the go
rules.
meetup. We're going to talk about doing something, a good way for programmers to do it. And playing around with like alternatives to DAGs is not a good way for a programmer to write a piece of code that they would use for podcasts. So.
Because we could like have different types of rules. Like you can have
Yes.
a rule that filters some episodes, so those are out of the question, and you can have rules that like sort episodes. You can have rules that scores episodes, like different kinds of rules actually. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the interface is always. I don't think it's next. I think it's pop, peak, and length.
yeah.
Well, so I think the interface is going to be about the entire list.
Mm-hmm.
Each
Why
rule
would the
takes
next
in.
part of a
So each rule takes in the list and all of the podcasts and your historical data and everything, and the output is the entire list.
Sure, I just don't think you can actually write that. I think it's much easier to say like the news is a reverse chronological, and then it outputs a.
Well, so all you're doing here in this case is you're making the changes that your rule knows about. That's all you're doing.
Oh, you're in place editing the list. Oh, you're saying sorting again.
Yeah.
Because it matters, like the current order affects subsequent rules.
No, sure, but I think you can do it as choose next instead of sort.
Yeah, but in this particular case, your rule could be something that's not even going to affect the next one. It could be something that's like this rule applies to something deep down in the guts. A different rule interacts with it in an unexpected way. And so with the entire
really complicated, really fast with the rules interacting.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's better to avoid that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, your way is definitely doable and simple. It's just not as neat.
yeah. But well, I mean, it's. I think the.
To go back to the news example, so if we have many news podcasts and
Yes.
one is enough, so the moment you
That's
stumble upon one news podcast, then you discard all the others. So the next one is not enough, like you need to peek at the whole list and discard those.
No, the next is fine. It's you just choose the one you want.
But would each rule call next on all, exhaust the whole thing?
No. Sorry. Each rule, something else calls next on it, and each rule chooses the next episode from whatever logic it has. So if you have a reverse chronological, it's going to pick the oldest one. If you have or newest one, or whichever way that is. If you could have a rule which is tail, and it just gives you 5, and that's it. It says I'm all done. You have a rule that combines feeds. You have a rule that says here's 5 RSS feeds, 5 news feeds. Pick one episode from each one in order.
But why wouldn't you just use list and have the whole thing? Like why call next many times?
Because actually I think it's not next, I think it's peak.
Yeah.
The next rule would peak at what is the episode for the next one and then make a decision based on that.
Yeah.
But the next one by itself is not enough.
The
We need
following
multiple
on
ones.
rule would peak at all the previous rules and then decide which episode to pass on with its next.
Yeah. I see what you're getting at. I think that would work really well. I think it would be easier to write the rules if they get to see the whole list than to have them only do one item at a time. Some of these rules would get tricky if you're only doing one item at a time. So, for example, the dedo rule. You could do it with
Each
peak.
rule would have its own.
Yeah, you can't.
You'll see all the previous
Yes.
episodes.
You would be capable of doing that with peak, for sure. But the logic about doing that with just peak would get complicated.
I think, yeah, just from a human standpoint, you're gonna say, okay, now I need to decompose these rules that I'm kind of thinking,
Yeah, well,
if this,
and
then this, else this, then you're gonna say, okay, now I have to split these up
Well-
into individual rules that will then end up combining with the result I want. I think that's a little bit harder to,
Yeah, but I think it's
Concise.
writing the rules themselves in a way that to do that. Is where it gets a little bit tricky.
Yeah, that's
I
what
think
I
as
think
far
it's
as
not-
computationally
it's not as bad.
concerned, it would actually be faster to only use peak.
oh, it's simpler and nicer.
Well, it's
I think.
simpler sometimes, and sometimes it's not, depending on what the rule is.
I'm saying for simpler stuff, it's simpler. If you
Yeah.
don't, if you want to have a simpler set of,
So-
if you want to have a simpler language, basically, then it would be great. If
Yeah,
you want to have a more powerful language, then you're gonna have to make it be more complicated.
Another example, this gets way down in there, we're running a little on time, but an example would be something like, you've got all these rules, you don't know what order you should put the rules in, because like, now we're into questions of that. And then you, last minute, you're like, oh, I'm gonna see Bob tomorrow, and if Bob was in any of these episodes, I'm gonna listen to the most recent episode of Bob, or, you know, he was in that episode, you know, like, oh, okay, so we'll have something to talk about tomorrow, or something like that. And then you can have that temporary rule, you slap here at the end, instead of having, like, hunt, where in the middle do I put that rule? Like, no, just put this here at the end. That is one that would be really tricky to get right, if you were only using peak.
No, you just repeatedly call peak.
Yeah, you would repeatedly call peak, but,
And you drop anything that doesn't have Bob in it, and you admit all
and
the
then
ones
you
that
would
have
get the
Bob.
ones that have Bob, and then you get the one that was the most recent in that one.
Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. That so that was not, you're right, that one would not be too tricky. Dedupe would be tricky at that point.
But you still consume all the items from
Yes.
the previous queues, and
And then have a calculation for determining, do we take the next step for dedupe and things like that.
So if you're going to do that often, might as well have a method that does it for you. Like that's just
Yeah, but-
lazy.
But it's, the trick with that
yes,
is,
but so I'm imagining you have like you have news is reverse chronological, serial is chronological. The reason you don't want to consume the whole list yet because you still have to pick which episode goes next, and you can interleave them by peeking.
that's right, yes. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. My thinking on this is that basically putting the peak down here rather than here for the rule sets. And my reason for that was because it makes the rules slightly easier. You have the entire picture, including the forward list. And so then each time they give you the forward list. Or possibly that would be the trick, is that maybe instead of giving you the forward list, what they give you is functor. Now we're getting into computer science again. But it gives you the functor, the peak functor. Maybe that is what they give you. So it gives you a function, the output of your rule is a function that will give you the next. It's not the next, it's a function that will give you the next. Then you could, the complexities around making those rules actually get a little bit simpler in that circumstance, because then if you're like, but do I have to go back to 10 or whatever, you can make a function that gives you just the one next, and then you can compose those a little bit easier, and then that would be cleaner at that point. But
I mean, really, if you implement it your way, you could basically have it his way if you just have it be a single feed that has feed in, feed out rule.
yeah, yes,
So you really wouldn't have to have a different implementation. You
Yeah.
could have it be as complex or as simple as you wanted to,
yeah.
if you could chain them together.
Yes, this is true, and that is the advantage of doing the peak one, and it will also be significantly more efficient than having the entire damn list every single.
No, but I'm saying you could do it with the entire damn list.
Yeah.
In the case of you just want to have a serial, one thing goes in, one thing goes out, in a few chain rules, you can do that.
Yeah.
I personally don't think you're going to have enough to where it's a real performance issue unless you're doing this for like 1 million people. So I kind of like the idea of list in, list out every time. You just redo it however many times you need to do it, and it's fine.
So
And that
if
may
it
even
gets
be
expensive with memory, you just pass pointers around or
Yeah,
or
and I-
integers
and I-
into other slices.
And I think peak might even get a little expensive just bouncing around in memory versus just handing off. I mean, it may be a wash, actually, now that I think about it.
These are things we can test.
Conceptually, I just like having everything as much as you want to be able to consider
Yeah.
what you're doing. Yeah.
So is the evaluation of rules like a big function, like an algorithm, if this then that, if this then that, or like is each rule an interface, then you run its eval function and then you run them in a certain order?
Yeah, that.
But that in that case, like you need some sort of priority, like which rule runs first, and if this rules then that, yeah. Yeah, I think that's tricky.
Yes, it is.
I'm saying you model that as a DAG.
Yes.
But
The
would the
ordering is
DAG
the
be
DAG.
enough? Because like some rule could affect previous rules, and you have to rerun those
You
previous
can't
rules.
do that. Yeah, but you don't have to deal with rule priority. Sorry, you can resolve rule priority by constructing the DAG.
Yeah.
It's your
Like somebody said, it was IP tables, basically.
if your execution becomes cyclic, things are going to get stupidly complicated. So you want to do everything you can to not have any kind of cyclic execution.
Yep.
This domain is not complicated enough to warrant that.
Yeah, we already have the thing where you refresh and you get a totally new list.
Yeah. Well, this was an interesting conversation. I was hoping we would do more Go code, but I think it's good to get this stuff worked out.
Do you guys do this at work? Like, do you have similar meetings where you discuss?
Oh
Oh, yeah.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Actually, I would rewrite it 4 or 5 times from scratch, and then I would go talk to other people.
Yeah.
It's this plus then on top of that, then you have to get into like corporate politics things. So it's like this, and then you have to like figure out what is the order that I have to tell people things.
To get them on board?
Yeah.
This is why the speed up on LLM dev is actually not the, oh, it can build code quicker. It's like shoving a prototype in somebody's face and saying, you're not gonna fight shit on this, this already exists, tell me what's wrong with it. And basically
Yes,
doing
exactly.
this type of fun thing.
Yeah, and that is the place where it gets faster. Using an LLM is faster because it does a lot of the fight checking for you. Not,
And
it
then-
makes the wrong choices, but then like choices that are like, okay, fine, I can live with that for now.
Yeah.
But the trick is then
And then it doesn't get
how
offended
wrong
when
are
you
the
tell it.
choices?
Yeah. It doesn't get offended when you tell it that the choices are wrong and redo it.
Because the other thing that you get is you build a function that doesn't actually work the way you intended, but one customer loves it. So you bring out that function, and then they become your biggest customer, and then you're stuck supporting that bug function for the next decade.
Yeah.
Did y'all see that thing about why they rewrote TypeScript in Go?
Because it was bloody faster.
Well, because it was a lot faster, but because they could feed the AI bot
They're
simpler stuff and have it poop out stuff faster and better. Because they're like, why didn't we use Rust? Because it compiles too slow and the AI bot costs too much. I like
which
that
was true
they
at the
picked
time.
Go, but
Which was true at the time, and then they rewrote Bot in Rust, and now,
Yeah, the blog post just dropped today.
yes.
Yeah.
they rewrote what in Rust?
Bond,
Bond.
it's
They
equivalent
they
to
rewrote it
Node.js.
with
Oh, God.
It's the compiler and the runtime for
It's
Node.
the 5th different version of Node.js.
That's
Yeah,
right.
not
Just
IOJS, not that one.
And there's Dino and
There's Node, there's Dino, there's Bun.
I feel like there's got to be more than that.
What's the one in Chrome called?
V8. Yeah. Well, Node basically is V8.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
plus
yeah, yeah.
plus a bunch
But
of
since Bun got acquired by Anthropic, people are
Yeah.
no longer that much.
I'm nowhere near in love with the JavaScript ecosystem to touch anything that isn't Node.
I just want to be able to answer the question, does anything call this function?
No.
I mean, I use Node because I have to for my job, but I'm definitely not going to go like, oh yeah, Bun, I'm going to try this alternate thing with a language I'd rather not be using.
I embedded Vue.js because
React.
I needed to embed something and then it had an RPM available, and that's like our criteria for whether we can use things or not.
Well, sorry for the lack of pizza tonight. Several things went
Double
wrong.
up next one.
Yeah, several things went wrong on the way, and just I'm gonna go and talk to the folks over there. Like, they didn't screw up that bad. It was the app that we've been using to get pizzas that they dropped the ball. So, yeah, way to go sometimes. But we will be back. I believe we are going to be in here in August. We need to get that double checked, but I'm pretty sure that we will be here in this room in August. It's the week before the Fed Supernova stuff here at Capital Factory that gets everything canceled for like the whole week. But we're the week before, so we're probably okay. 12th, yeah. So, I think we'll be okay. Otherwise, then we will be back in here in September. I think we're good in here, other than maybe August. But I think we're going to be okay in August, too. I think we're going to be good in here until December. I assume we're going to be out in December again. And hopefully we'll go over to Rupelos again.
You did go to the what was that coffee shop over there by the ACC? I think I missed that.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that meeting.
That's the formal Methodist group. Yeah.
That's a different. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a different. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. No, that's
Because I knew I seen you too. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll be at the next one.
Cool. All right. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Oh, and we have got parking passes up here. If you park here, I strongly recommend you come get them. Yeah.
The airport changes pushed it until 0334 because that's the media contact to do a thing 5 years ago.
Is the name of the airport going to change?
Yes. Okay. So the name changes, the 2 of the 3 codes change. So we're going to get some really annoying feedback because our map is going to say Donald Trump International in brackets PBI, which is technically correct for a month.
Where?
Palm Beach International.
Palm Beach.
Yeah, it's getting renamed and recoded, but on many maps and booking systems, you use the IATA standard, which doesn't change until August.
Okay. Yeah.
So you are going to see a mismatch between what the name says and what the letters imply.
Yeah. Well, it's like MCI for a long yeah. Kansas City, but it was a reference to MCI, the company.
Oh, the company. Oh.
Yeah, some airport names are fun, some aren't. I like how, like in Camden, around Ontario, they just managed to get everything with Y's. I'm like, how'd you do that? Like,
Well, that's all the because isn't Vancouver start with a Y as well?
I think so.
Because I think it's most of the Canadian ones are Y's.
Yeah, because you've got Pearson with YYZ, Billy Bishop with YTO, Ottawa
The
with
Montreal one
YW.
too. Yeah, Justin Trudeau.
And it's interesting because you have other places like Heathrow, which got LHS and all that. Not LHS, LHR.
Yeah.
LHS is a company who gives us much data. That's Lufthansa Systems.
How often does this happen?
Complete recode of an airport like this. So I actually dug back in our code base to figure it out, and the last time this really happened was Sao Paulo back in about 2015.
Crazy.
Well,
Yeah,
then,
recoding
there-
airports is really unusual.
And
Yeah,
there
when
are
you think
certain-
about it, like one simple political decision has this like far-reaching consequences.
Because these are navigation codes. So as all this data rolls over tonight,
Mhm.
KDJT becomes the navigation destination in the avionics systems.
Mhm.
So that's what you're asking people to do globally, is ensure.
Install the updates like
But, yeah, but you know, of course, like
Like, there's one-
if you're EasyJet over in Europe, you don't care.
Yeah.
But you best believe it's going to be a shit show in Florida tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we're
It's
going
like I imagine you have many systems that communicate with each other and assume this is the nomenclature, like this is the code, and the code changes, and if it's not aligned.
And the code changes, and which code are you using? Because nobody ever actually tells you which standard they're using in the communications. You got to suss it out.
Yeah.
Well, at least sometimes it's like they close one airport and then just get rid of that name, and then the new airport has a new name.
Yeah.
So
It used to be the case in Walmart in Bastrop. If you were there after 11:30 at night, they would lock the doors with you in the store. You could not leave until midnight because they had to restart all their cash registers for the new day.
It's really fun. I helped one of our guys who's more on the core flight tracking write an article in the jest of assumptions you make. And like there's fun things in there, like multiple coded airports can share the same runways. Nobody will ever program their transponder to look like code null. Oh wait, they can just do that.
Do you write avionics software or what?
Commercial flight tracking. So I'm not on. Nothing I do is safety critical. Thank goodness. That's why I still have hair.
Yeah.
But it's all the commercial flight tracking side, so aggregating all the data, and I'm one of the people who's on the, hey, let's make a monetized API and sell all that stuff. So like, if you saw very recently, Cloudflare did their monetization gateway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they were talking about like, yeah, you have all these different endpoints to get data, and they cost different prices. I'm like, I've been doing that for literally a decade, guys. That's why I'm making a shit ton of money now, because I already had this in place. Well, I'm not. The company is.
Bosses.
Close enough.
Yeah, so airport codes change about every 10 years. Time zones change every week.
Pretty much, yes. And
Time
if
zones?
you, time zones. Oh yeah, time zones are updated on the regular because people decide.
Oh, with daytime
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is the city will be
no.
like, I want to make a 15-minute offset this year, and everybody's like, oh, that was dumb. Let's go to a half-hour offset. People are like, that was even dumber. Let's go back to 1 hour offset.
Like governments.
It's not like today we changed to daylight savings time. That is a no thing. It's like today we're going to be in the Pacific time zone.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yes.
Or today we're gonna have our own time zone now.
Like with 15 minutes increments, like not
Yes,
on
there
the
are
hour.
15
Yes,
there are
yes.
15-minute and 45-minute
Yeah.
time zones.
This is
India,
India's 30.
Yeah, India's got a 30-minute offset.
All
to it.
of India.
Yeah,
and
all
the
of
two
India.
time zone wide countries.
They have
They're
one time zone.
One time zone, and it's a
Half
half
hour.
hour.
It's half hour.
And
It's
this,
crazy.
this is one, why I love ISO 8601, and two, why everything's epoch time. Because people are always like, but then it's the next day. I'm like, no, it's 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of the next day is a human problem. I'm not solving human problems, I'm solving machine problems.
That's a good answer.
So Arizona doesn't follow daylight savings time.
Right.
Oh really?
Yeah, no DST in Arizona.
Arizona is mountain time, right?
Uh,
Central or
think
mountain?
mountain.
Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
unless you're in the Navajo Nation, which gets to make their own rules. They follow daylight savings time. The Navajo Nation is entirely within the border of Arizona.
So-
Unless you're in the Hopi Nation, which gets to make their own rules. They don't follow daylight savings time. The Hopi Nation is entirely within the border of the Navajo Nation. The Hopi Nation has very little money.
Come
Most
on,
Hopi
you-
kids go to school in the Navajo Nation.
There was a guy actually during one of the Go events earlier was talking about that because the companies are in the collections billing and there's very legal requirements when you're allowed to contact people and the difficulty of doing it legally correctly due to time zones. But airport schedule data comes in airport local time zones. So you must parse that data in real time, feeding into your system with the correct time zone offsets based off of the airport definition. And you best have your database updated for your time zone conversions. Otherwise, your site's now tracking an hour.
And do you calculate that yourself, or pay for an API that has all the time zones?
Time zones thankfully come as Unix updates.
Yeah, it's like an update to your operating system.
Okay, like NTP.
No,
Like there's actually a time zone file, like it comes through like your patching system.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And it's updated like daily or something.
In bad
there's
weeks.
a Git repo. Yeah, in bad weeks.
There's like a Git repo.
Oh
for
yeah,
Tails?
there's like a guy who maintains this.
Come
It's
on.
like
No,
one of
no,
the
no. I
Y2K
remember one
things.
time we got to
This
April.
is bananas.
One year we got to April, we were already on time zone update.
We gotta
We're
get
like,
out.
what?
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, that was really fun. Like, it felt like the actual work thing. Like,
It's really good.
Yeah.
where
Enjoyed
people
it.
bike shed to death.
My phone is just dead right now. Yeah, bro, I got some nice things under
Everybody